We are on verse 3. Perhaps I'll just read the translation again to review. The center of the divine lotus is the core, Krishna's residence. It is presided over by the predominated and predominating moiety. It is mapped as a hexagonal mystic symbol, like a diamond, the effulgent supreme entity of Krishna. The fountainhead of all divine potencies presides as the central pivot. The great mantra of 18 syllables, which is formed of 6 integral parts, is manifest as a hexagonal place with 6-fold divisions. Okay, well, perhaps we can invite Jayadev. You want to read the purport or a chunk of the purport? Not sure how long this purport is. Not too long, not too long.
Okay, where is my copy? Somewhere in circulation all around my room here. Oh, here it is.
And welcome Krishnendrani, Radhana Rupini, Tungarasa, and Giridhari Prabhu all just joined us. Dandavat, Dandavat. So we're on verse number 3, and we're going to hear the purport. Brahma Samhita.
Okay. Everyone can hear okay? Connection's good?
Yes, good. Yeah, loud and clear.
Krishna's Lila, or pastimes, are of 2 basic types, either manifest or unmanifest. Oh, funny, I read this one before when you weren't around. They had me read this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the same one.
Oh, so you got this far before, huh? You came.
Yeah, but I wanted to. Yeah, I can actually just chime in a little too. I didn't read this book for a long time because some of my guidance, they didn't forbid it, but we're saying, oh, that's a very high book when I made that comment, and it kind of stuck with me like, oh, right, I should be reading Bhagavad Gita more for where I'm at, not where. So it's been nice to actually, because I was always naturally attracted to this book, but also had a little bit of that feeling of this is such a high topic, and I'm really grateful to go through it with guidance and with reflection from the sadhus, so I'm just really grateful this is happening. And I feel like the whole what do you call it, deviation, or what did you call it, something else that was brought through last time, like that's also essential for all of this, the way that we're coming into this with caution and all of that. So that's why I think we all did, but I definitely wanted to go through it with your added illuminations again. So we were just kind of reading ahead, just to read lightly, to go back and then go through it. Yeah, so we did get this far, and I did read this before, and I'm happy. And now I'm practiced, I can read it again.
Well, very nice to hear your reflections. Thank you for sharing, Jayadev.
Purport. Krishna's Lila, or pastimes, are of 2 basic types, either manifest or unmanifest. The pastimes of Vrindavana that may be revealed to the vision of humans is manifest Krishna Lila, whereas that which remains invisible to the eye is unmanifest Krishna Lila. In Goloka, the unmanifest Lila is ever manifest, and in Gokula, the manifest Lila is manifest to the worldly eye when Krishna wills it. Srila Jiva Goswami has stated in his Krishna Sandarbha, Aprakata Lilataha Prasutihi Prakata Lilayam Abhivyaktihi. Manifest Lila is the revelation of unmanifest Lila. It is also further said in Krishna Sandarbha, Shri Vrindavanasya Prakasha Vishesho Golokatvam Tatra Prapanchaka Loka Prakata Lila Vakashatvena vabhasan mahanam prakasho goloka iti samartaniyam. The meaning is that any interval which is found in Krishna's manifest Lila in the illusory world is filled by those pastimes that have their subtle presence in the background in an unmanifest way. They are the pastimes of Goloka or Goloka Lila. So all these points are harmonized by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Laghu Bhagavatamritam. Yat tu Goloka nama syat tacha Gokula Vaibhavam tadatmya Vaibhavatang cha tasyatan mahimonnatehe. Goloka is the transcendental manifestation of the higher transcendental glories of Gokula. So Goloka is simply the self-same manifestation of the majesty of Gokula. Although each and every pastime of Krishna is not manifest in Gokula, all his pastimes are eternally manifest in Goloka. The revelation to the conditioned souls of the unmanifest Lila of Goloka, Goloka being the self-same majestic manifestation of Gokula, is of two types, namely through worship by mantra, mantropasanamayi, and by pure spontaneity, swarasiki. Sri Jiva Goswami has explained in his writings that any one of the various locations and associated circumstances of the divine pastimes have their constant localized existence, and so may be meditated upon by the appropriate mantra. The meditational revelation of Goloka that arises from the constant localized mantra meditation upon a location corresponding to a singular pastime is mantropasanamayi lila. But those pastimes that pervade many localities with manifold divine sports and revelries are full of variegated spontaneity, and thus they are swarasiki. That is, they are revealed to the devotees whose transcendental spontaneity has matured. Both meanings are in this verse. Firstly, the pastimes indicated in 18 syllables, the basis of the mantra, are delegated their appropriate localities in order that each one manifest a particular pastime of Krishna. Actually, I didn't read this one. I'm thinking of the one before, maybe.
I was thinking that, yeah, that you got
Yeah.
it at the end of two. Yeah.
Kling Krishnaya Govindaya Gopi Janna Villabhaya Swaha. This mantra is, I'm amazed this is in here, like that anyone can just find this mantra in this book. Yeah. This mantra is said to be formed of 6 integral parts of 6 metric bases, which are 1. Krishnaya, 2. Govindaya, 3. Gopi Jana, 4. Villabhaya, 5. Sva, and 6. Ha. The formation of the mantra is thus shown to be the consecutive placement of these 6 limbs. The great hexagonal mystic symbol or circle of the Lord's dominion, Mahadyantra, is explained as follows. The seed, bija, the impelling principle or desire seed, kama bija, klim, is the central pivot within the symbol. By concentrating one's thoughts upon the transcendental truth, with the help of such a formula, one can attain perception of the truth as Chandra Dvaja, Lord Shiva did. Dvaja. The teachings of Gautamiya Tantra state, Sva Shabdena Cha Kshetrajno Heti Chit Prakritihi Para. the word sva indicates kshetrajna, or the soul, and ha indicates the higher transcendental nature. According to Sri Hari Bhakti Vilas, Uttarad Govinda Yetyasmat Surabhim Go Jatim Tad Uttarad Gopi Janetyasmat Vidyash Chaturdasha Tad Uttarad Vallabha, etc. In this line, one may have a realization of a localized pastime through the agency of worship by the mantra. This is the objective of worship by mantra. The general purport is that one who is deeply aspiring to enter into Krishna's divine pastimes must, with proper perspective of his relationship in the absolute sambandha jnana, born of devotional serving disposition, bhakti rasa, render service unto Krishna with the spiritual inner self. One's relationship with the divinity is established when this intrinsic knowledge is realized. 1. The intrinsic form of Krishna. 2. The intrinsic form of Krishna's divine pastimes in Vraja. 3. The intrinsic form of his intimate attendants, the gopis. 4. The intrinsic form of full self-surrender unto Krishna in the wake of Tad Vallabha, those who are his most beloved, the gopis. 5. The pure soul's divine intrinsic form of divine cognition. And 6. Chit Prakriti, or the intrinsic divine nature, viz., the intrinsic nature of the soul to render divine service unto Sri Krishna. I wonder if that's a typo, Tad Vallabha, isn't it BH? Not sure.
Oh yeah, that must be a typo.
One who is, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I just said definitely a typo, yeah.
Yes. One who is properly established in such relativity in the absolute attains firmness, nishtha, in the soul's engagement in divine practice, abhidheya, and comes to know of the only life nectar or prospect, prayojana, to be the joy of service to the supreme male, Sri Krishna, in the, quote, ego of a predominated maidservant of Sri Radha. This is the underlying purport. So initially, the meditational pastimes of Goloka and Gokula may appear in the heart of a devotee in the stage of holy practice, sadhana, through worship by the mantra. And secondly, the unrestrained, free-willed pastimes are revealed to the devotee in the stage of perfection, siddha. This is the general position of Goloka or Gokula, which will be further illuminated as the text evolves. The meaning of Jyoti Rupena Manuna is that the transcendental purport is revealed in the mantra, and linking that with the transcendental desire of prakrita kama, of pure love for Krishna, the life of one who goes on serving in this line becomes saturated with the supreme ecstasy of joyous love divine, or Premananda Mahananda Rasa. Such eternal pastimes are full of love and joy and are ever refulgent in Goloka.
Right. Does anyone want to share any reflections on what we've read? Bring anything up? You know, one thing we can, point out from the get-go is that, we don't need to arbitrarily take it upon ourselves to go and, absorb ourselves in such meditation. And there are some persons who believe that, right? That if we really want to have entrance to that plane, then we have to, do it now, like this type of high meditation on particular mantras that's being described here. This is, as Jayadev was saying at the beginning, this is something very, very high. And when it is the right time, our guru will tell us, when we're ready for such a thing, So that is one thing to remember. Otherwise, we will become sahajya, right? Prakrita sahajya, we will become imitationists. And we will be dealing with the plane of the minds, the mental system, rather than plane of pure transcendence. So we can go through some of the points that are brought up here. So these are kind of helpful words for those who aren't familiar. Prakat and aprakat, which is a little confusing because it's similar to aprakrita and prakrita, which are also, important terms, right? Prakrita is referring to that which is mundane, and aprakrita, that which is supra-mundane, beyond the mundane, but may appear to be mundane. And Krishna, the nature of Krishna's Lila is characterized by that mood, aprakrita. But this aprakat or prakata so prakat means that which is manifest, and aprakat means that which is unmanifest. And you'll hear these terms sometimes. So the basic idea here is that Krishna's Lila is always flowing, and sometimes it may be apparent, it may be manifest within the plane of our perception, and sometimes it may not, So, from a historical perspective, you may say 5,000 years ago in Vrindavan, Krishna's Lila was here and on earth, but actually they're always going on. It's just a question of whether they are coming to the surface or not. And it's also described that this Prakat Lila, this manifest Lila, moves in a kind of cyclic way throughout all the different universes. And this is within the worldly plane, of course. There's no question of that Lila being unmanifest in the spiritual plane, right? But in this plane, they're sometimes manifest and sometimes unmanifest. And so here in this worldly plane, this Bhaumya Lila, earthly Lila, is moving in a cyclic way through all the different Brahmandas, material universes. So like there's a particular Lila of Krishna going on at any given time in every single one of the universes. It's always playing out at a different stage of the Lila. So that is one thing. And what else is here? Then there's this point being made about, particular mantra meditation on these particular places related to the Leelas, which isn't so relevant for us. Discussion of this Krishna mantra, which is, of course, one of the Gayatri mantras that we chant. And this is an interesting explanation of swaha, because, our main acquaintance with that word, which most of you are familiar with, is during fire yagyas, fire sacrifices, when the offering is made into the fire, right? That phrase is used, swaha. So the idea is that we're offering ourselves unto the divine, right? To that higher plane through the medium of some particular offerings. Then this is very nice, this explanation here, that, in order to have a genuine relationship with Krishna and Krishna's entourage, Krishna's abode, there are certain prerequisites. You can spell it like that. We normally spell it with a V instead of a W, but you could render it like that too. It is here in the text. If you have the book in front of you, Marie, we are on the purport of verse 3.
It's that V and W in Sanskrit. It's V is unilabial, one lip. Va, wa is two lips, creating the sound, and it's often almost in between the two a little bit. Va, or it can be. Swaha.
Yeah, I probably pronounce it myself more like with a W, but but I always spell it with a V.
I notice it like with different words, I'll do it differently. Like instead of Saraswati, well, I usually pronounce it Saraswati, but I might go more Saraswati, but then I'm going to say Govinda, not Govinda. You know, like certain, it's, I think, I mean, Suhasini could verify this too, but a lot of times in India, it almost favors one or the other with the common pronunciation of the name. I believe it's not just from a westernization, like Saraswati. Yeah, anyways.
Yeah, it does seem a bit arbitrary sometimes how we decide to pronounce things. So this is quite important, this explanation given here of these 6 different prerequisites, you know, in order to establish our relationship, you know, with divinity. You know, because the thing is, if we don't have these things, then we're going to be in the plane of our imagination. You know? So this, you know, and so you know, related to this is Sambandha Gyan, right? Sambandha Gyan means having a proper understanding of what is what. So, you know, there's one expression of Saraswati Thakur where he says, without Sambandha Gyan, there is no seva. You know, service is not possible without Sambandha Gyan. Because ultimately real seva is a conscious offering. So if we don't have you know, it's just like with a person, right? We always have to remember, it always comes back to this. Krishna is a person. We're not just throwing out something into the ether. But it's like when you're building a relationship with someone, you know, you're learning about who they are and what they like and what they don't like. And there are so many nuances in the relationship that will develop. You know? So having that understanding is necessary. So these 6 points are mentioned that we should have this realization. What is the intrinsic form of Krishna? The intrinsic form of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, his intimate attendants, the gopis. What is the nature of full self-surrender? And this point is also very important. Following in the footsteps or under the guidance of the gopis. You know, this is very important. This is a very important point. That we, you know, and we were mentioning recently about, and this is mentioned in a number of places. You know, it is mentioned that I was mentioning recently, I can't remember in which meeting it was, but the example of Lakshmi Devi. You know, that it's mentioned that Lakshmi Devi, she did austerities for hundreds of years in order to get entrance into Vrindavan, but she finally could not, you know, and why? Because she wasn't able to give up her mood of Aishwarya, majesty, opulence. And because this is necessary, that one will like leave behind whatever external identity they have and take shelter of those in the mood of Vrindavan, specifically the gopis, if they want that highest, to experience that highest type of rasa, highest type of relationship with Krishna. So Lakshmi Devi could not shed that identity and to take shelter and follow in the mood of the Braja Gopis. So ultimately she could not get entrance. But then it is mentioned conversely that the personified Vedas, they had this eagerness to have entrance. And because they took shelter of the gopis, then they could get entrance there. You know, it is also mentioned that this is one type of initiation that has to take place, that one must take shelter of the Braja Gopis. And it's mentioned that Mahaprabhu, from one perspective, he took this initiation from Ramananda Rai. You know, that, you know, Mahaprabhu, in a sense, he had 3 initiations. He had his you know, first initiation from Ishwara Puri, second, his sannyasa initiation from Keshava Bharati. And then there was another kind of initiation that took place. Our Gurudev, Srila Govinda Maharaj, mentioned this point, that from Ramananda Rai. Why? Because Ramananda Rai, in his identity in Vrindavan, is Vishaka, who's one of the Sakis. So in a sense, and in that famous conversation that Mahaprabhu had with Ramananda Rai, Mahaprabhu put Ramananda in the position of the instructor. Mahaprabhu's receiving instruction from Ramananda. So, and then Gurudev also, he made some comment. We heard from Janardhan Maharaj, why did he choose Ramananda? Because there's also Srup Damodar. Srup Damodar is the Lita Saki, right? And Gurudev said, because Vishaka is known, because Lalita, she's very fanatic about Radharani. She's on the side of Radharani, but Vishaka is a little more sympathetic to Krishna. So she's a little more neutral. So that's why he chose, Ramananda. He made, this is transcendental humor. This is what the great devotees joke about. So that is also mentioned, Then there's one line in Chaitanya Charitamrita, which I can't remember right now, but saying that if one really wants entrance into the Madhura Rasa Lila Vrindavan, they must take shelter of one of the Sakis. It is indispensable. And one time Gurudev, he was I remember he was talking about one gentleman, some Vaishnava gentleman who our Gurudev considered to be what we call Sahajya, And of course, how you define Sahajya, that's kind of open for debate, And some of you may have seen on Facebook, one of our dear brothers, I think Jayadev, you saw that. And yeah, you saw it, you made a comment on it. It was Nolkishore Prabhu.
Oh yeah. People
he
overuse that word. I mean, they use it for people who are not, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure he had a point. It's actually very funny what he wrote. He wrote like this kind of poster, saying, what was it that he said exactly? That what was it that he said? He said, we now fit our own definition of Sahajya. Fortunately, our definition is wrong. The thing is that, of course, there were like 100 comments, and there was this huge heated debate that arose from that. And I had a lot of things I would have liked to say, but I didn't want to get into the pigsty, and sling mud. So I just stayed quiet. But first of all, Sahajya is not the right term. The real term is Prakrita Sahajya. Actually, Sahajya doesn't mean anything bad. Sahajya just means like the natural way, to be natural, which ultimately we want. But the proper term is Prakrita.
Yeah, couldn't one say that the gopis are Sahajya?
Well, yes, exactly. That is absolutely right. Like in the highest stage, it's all Sahajya. It's all spontaneous, natural, right? There's no artifice, there's no calculation, there's no regulation. It's all just natural, right? So, but the term, what the actual proper term is, Prakrita Sahajyism. Prakrita, this going back, we mentioned that word at the beginning, right? Material. So when we're trying to imitate that natural path, that natural expression within the mundane plane, right? So in other words, imitating spiritual emotions with our mundane faculties, right? And then you get people who, they'll produce tears and shivering and roll on the ground. In India, you'll actually see it. We had people sometimes in our mat who would, just decide to go into ecstasy, and not members of our mat, but visitors, right? And yeah, I have a kind of embarrassing story about that. once I poured a bucket of water over, which I regret now. I think that was a bit too harsh. You know, this was in my young fanatic days, in my 20s. You know.
No, I think that's the proper response. I mean, I have so many honored Vaishnavas that have stories of either physically throwing them out or, you know. Yeah, I think it's a natural response to the Sahajya thing. That's the best I've heard so far, a bucket of water. It's like, wake up, you know? That's great.
It's like some simple Bengali village woman, and she was like, in the middle of we were surrounding Tulasi and finalizing coming to the end of the kirtan, and she just started rolling in the middle. And so I went and got a bucket of cold water and poured it over her. But I would not do that now. I was probably like, how old was I? It was like probably around 22 or something, 23, you know. A young fanatic stage. No, if it was now, I might respectfully nudge her and, you know, ask her to move along. You know? So yeah, you'll see that kind of stuff, you know. And then at the far end of the spectrum, you have, you know, people mixing tantric stuff, you know, like sexual stuff, making it really twisted, right? So I guess, you know, that would be more of a classical, what happened after I poured water on her. I don't remember what happened after that. No. I think she got the message and broke out of her ecstasy. Poor woman. Please forgive me. So, you know, but the thing is, right, really what this comes down to is it's semantics, right? Because, you know, words get used in different ways. And I saw that our Gurudev, he used that term in a broader sense just to refer to any type of imitationism, you know, which may be, you know, persons who are simply fixed more on the formal aspect of things, but without the inner conscious cultivation. Our Gurudev would use the term like that. You know, and then from that perspective, there's many different types of Sahajism. You know, like you could say the Jati Gosais, you know, they're persons who emphasize the bloodline, your birth, and all these things. You know, and this happens also in the Gaudiya line, you know, like, you know, there are those in the bloodline of, sorry, I have a tissue here. I have, yeah, thank you, Jeannie. There are those in for example, the bloodline of Nityananda Prabhu, Advaita Acharya, and they'll consider such persons to be worshipable because they're born in that line, right? You know, and you know, one notable example of that is and this is also very funny, Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj. You know, Bhakti Saranga Goswami, some of you have heard of him. He was one of the most prominent leading figures in the mission of Srila Saraswati Thakur. And he's actually what's called Nityananda Vamsha, you know, means in the bloodline of Nityananda Prabhu. But what's very funny is that, you know, like ordinarily those types of persons, they were giving Saraswati Thakur a difficult time, right? You know, they're emphasizing let's see, you have more people joining. You know, they're emphasizing birth, right? And the superiority of their birth. But Bhakti Saranga Goswami, he's actually an authentic Vaishnava surrendering to Saraswati Thakur. And because of, you know, and also another thing is that like Srila Saraswati Thakur used his position to help the mission in different ways, you know, because actually, you know, one interesting point, Saraswati Thakur came from a lower caste, you know, Saraswati Thakur, Bhakti Vinod, they're from the Kayastha caste, which is, as far as I can understand, is seen in different ways in different parts of India, but from one perspective is considered a Shudra. class, one of, a lower, quite lower caste. So Saraswati Thakur, like he actually came from one of the lower castes. So to have a disciple like Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj, and Srila Sridhar Maharaj also, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he was born in a very high Brahmin family. And Saraswati Thakur particularly expressed appreciation for that when he quoted this verse from Bhagavad Gita, Yad Yad Acharati Shreshtas, saying that whatever a great man does, the common people will follow. He chanted that verse from Gita when Srila Sridhar Maharaj joined, because he felt, ultimately to be Brahmin, that doesn't count for anything, but simply the fact that type of status gave some dignity and set an example for the world. Like this isn't something just for the bums, but this is something of the most dignified type, has that type of status. But anyway, going back to Bhakti Saranga Goswami, so he was like particularly in a high position in the line of Nityananda Prabhu, very highly revered. And so Saraswati Thakur used that in different cases. Okay, Sue Devi, thanks for joining, and best our dandavats to all the devotees there gathering in Tikul.
Dandavat pranams, bye.
And like there's one famous story many of you are familiar with, when this foolish man in Vrindavan, he said, we can bless Raghunath Das Goswami because we're Brahmins and we're born in Vrindavan. Then the person who helped him understand how foolish he was and negotiated an apology was Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj. Because he was someone who would give his full respect to Bhakti. This man in Vrindavan, like according to his estimation, Bhakti Saranga Goswami was everything. So he could happily be corrected by someone like him. And Bhakti Saranga Goswami, he also dealt with, many of the court cases, things like that, and then there's one famous incident, he could get away with stuff, because of his position. And there was one incident in some court case that was going on, and I don't know what the details of the case were, but someone was telling him to like settle down and to listen to the judge, and this Bhakti Saranga Goswami, he said, I pass urine on the nose of the judge. I am not within the jurisdiction of the judge. I'm in Krishna's jurisdiction. Very strong. And they won the court case. Like he could get away with stuff like that. And there were other stories too we've heard, how he used his position. But anyway, going back to the point at hand, Srila Saraswati Thakur gave him this title of Prakrita, which is quite funny. He gave this a Prakrita Bhakti Saranga Goswami. So a Prakrita, what does a Prakrita mean? We're discussing at the beginning. It appears to be mundane, but it's not actually mundane. It's actually divine. So this was kind of like a stab against this whole group of the Jati Gosais, because like you all think like this Nityananda Vamsha, like having this high birth and high bloodline, that's a worshipable thing. We actually think it's mundane. We actually think it's material. However, Bhakti Saranga Goswami is actually a Vaishnava. So although he appears to be mundane according to our estimation, he's actually transcendental. It's like such a knock on the head of their whole conception, Like we actually think that's a totally mundane thing, to be born in the bloodline, but he is actually transcendental as it happens. So he's a Prakrita, appearing to be mundane, but he's actually divine, So he gave that title to him. So how did we get on to all of that? Oh, but Sahajya, we're discussing this term, Sahajiyism, right? So that could be seen, like according to the definition that Srila Govinda Maharaj had used, that type of conception that the birth and bloodline is important, that can be seen as a type of Sahajiyism. You know, and actually he made one comment once. I was very surprised to hear this. He told to Manasa Krishna Prabhu, one of our Australian brothers, he was going for some preaching in some part of India with one of our Indian sannyasis, and our Gurudev was giving him some instructions, and then he told him, he said, outside of the line of Saraswati Thakur, they're all Sahajiya. You know, that was Srila Govinda Maharaj's comment. Because, you know, why? Because Saraswati Thakur is actually establishing the conception and the consciousness with which all of these practices are to be cultivated. You know, because without that, you know, we're going through the motions, or you know, at best going through the motions, and at worst deviating in an unfortunate way. But Saraswati Thakur actually came out with the real spirit of Mahaprabhu's movement and Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So so going back to our dear brother Nol Kishore, you know, it really just comes down to semantics, you know, how you choose to define these terms. You know, perhaps classically they'll be defined in one way, but, you know, but words, their meaning and connotation, it changes, right, over time. So anyway, going back to our text, oh yeah, so we were discussing this point about taking shelter of the gopis, right? And in that line. Does anyone want to add any thoughts to our discussion today? And here the ego of a predominated, so again, these terms, right? Predominating, because ultimately Krishna, he is the only predominator, right? And in that sense, he's the only male. And then our ego, right? Our positive spiritual ego identity is to be predominated. And that is a female expression. And here specifically, this line of a maidservant of Shri Radha, you know, this is being mentioned. This is the line that our gurus have, you know, pointed out, you know, that they are aligning themselves with, and they're giving us some connection to. They've pinpointed that as the highest ideal goal. This last line is so beautiful. The life of one who goes on serving in this line becomes saturated with the supreme ecstasy of joyous love divine, or Premananda Mahananda Rasa. Such eternal pastimes full of love and joy are ever refulgent in Goloka. And also here in this purport, I kind of skipped over it. But we mentioned this a few weeks ago, this very peculiar point, you know, that it's indicated sometimes that Gokul is actually superior than Goloka, right? Gokul, where the earthly expression of Krishna's Lila, where Krishna's Lila appears in the earthly plane, that is higher. Because according to our logic, we would think the opposite, right? That Krishna's Lila in the transcendental plane, Goloka, is higher. But here it is indicated, and our gurus have also mentioned that it may be considered that Gokul is higher. This is also indicated here in this purport. So it is a curious thing.
Vishaka?
Yes. Who is that? Bhakta Jim.
Haribo.
Lord, Haribo.
I accept my dandavats, obeisances to the assembled devotees. Is so relishing. In my preaching work, I encounter feminists all the time and people who are fed up with the patriarchal abuse of the world, of the governments, of the religions. And so I often, and I hope I'm not being offensive by doing this, I mention to them that Radharani, we in our bhakti line, especially in Vraja, we consider Radharani even greater than Krishna because she has captured the Lord with her meekness, her humility. Sometimes I don't even mention meekness because it flies in the face of feminism, which is a very masculine, feminine assertion. But I was curious about how, because I'm always trying to translate it according to time, place, and circumstances. So without offending the Vaishnavas or Radha Krishna and without blowing people out of the water, I would appreciate your insights into addressing this rise in feminism and the disgust of the patriarchal masculine abuse of the world's institutions.
Wow, very well articulated, Bhakti Jim.
Yeah, it's very strong right now, and I'm tippy-toeing through these landmines of people's false conceptions of what masculine and feminine really is.
Yes.
So
yes. Well, I mean, see that's the thing. I mean, you just said it there. The problem is we've become prejudiced due to the level of exploitation in this world, right? To be dominant is used as a tool of exploitation and aggression in this world. But in its spiritual expression, Krishna predominating moiety, Krishna as the predominator, that is not a negative thing. No, the spirit of service, in this plane, that is something that is abused and exploited. And here hierarchy means a system of hierarchy means a system of abuse and exploitation. That's the problem. That's the only acquaintance that we have with such things in this world. But why can there not be a beautiful expression of hierarchy? So this is the problem, gyane prayasham urupasyan amanta evan. When you come to this, you have to leave all your prior conceptions at the door, and hear this with an unprejudiced mind. So yes, I mean, what you said is perfectly correct. We can say that from one perspective. Radharani is in the superior position. And what is the supreme proof of that? That Krishna embraces the mood of Radharani. Krishna himself is defeated by her love. Krishna himself is puzzled and bewildered by her love. Krishna himself feels that she's getting more joy in serving him than he's getting in receiving that. She is getting more fulfillment, more satisfaction in offering service than he's getting in receiving it, right? And so we have this song, right? Vasudev Ghosh, Jadi Gor na hoite, tabeke hoite, kemena dori tamde, Radhar Mahima, Premara Sasima, Jagata Janata Ke. Mahaprabhu came to this world to tell the glories of Radharani. That's why he came to this world. That's one of the primary purposes, to spread her glories, to demonstrate her victory, the victory of her love. So these are basically just two constitutional natures. Like water has a constitutional nature, fire has a constitutional nature. So we as Shakti, as the potency of the Lord, we have a constitutional nature. And Krishna as Shaktiman, the possessor of potency, he has a constitutional nature. That's all. It's not necessarily that one is higher than the other. Radharani is the supreme Shakti, potency. Krishna is the possessor of that. And Krishna is enhanced by that. Krishna is not beautiful without that. No, Krishna is not attractive to us without Radharani. She makes him beautiful. She makes him attractive and charming and all these things, you know. They are two parts of one whole. So it is simply that these are two different natures of divinity. And the problem is just, as I said, as you said, you know, we're living in a world of exploitation, and we've been acquainted with these things in a negative way. So, but we have to leave those behind when we are approaching this higher plane. Here, an open mind, open heart, open ears, what it actually is. You know, leave beside all the prejudice and prior conceptions and experience that you have, and try to hear this for what it actually is.
Right. I'm always thinking of Bhaktisiddhanta's revolutionary tactics that he used, like, for instance, wearing European clothing. There's that famous pictures of him in those long European trench coats, and he's driving in, I think, a Stutz Bearcat automobile into the backwoods of India to preach. So revolutionary. Prabhupada revolutionized. His first two disciples were two gay men. He empowered his women to preach and lead kirtan, and his godbrothers were furious with him. Like, how can you let these Western women lead kirtan? He says, we're not these bodies. When are you going to get it? You know, it's like, these are great Vaishnava spirit souls that are just temporarily housed in these so-called Western bodies. I mean, it just shattered so many, you know, stepped outside. All of our acharyas stepped outside of the conventions of their times. Bhaktivinoda Thakur sent Lord Chaitanya his life and precepts to McGill University. It was preaching and corresponding with the great American transcendentalists of the day: Whitman, Thoreau, Emerson, Tolstoy. It's absolutely far out, just completely far out. So I'm always trying to, without being offensive and without making assumptions or being presumptuous, I'm trying to, you know, embody that in a practical way, that stepping outside the box. And attracting people. Like, there's so much talk about the goddess and the divine feminine. So I tip it on its head. I go, maybe the world's getting ready for the appreciation of Radharani. You know, because that's what Vrindavan's all about, is Radhe Radhe, Jun Jun. Like, when I went there, that's all I heard was Radhe Radhe, Jun Jun. And I was like, wow, I thought this was Krishna's town. No, that's Mayapur. This is Radharani's town. Like, oh, so everything's on its head. And it's really, anyway, I get excited about these things. And always grateful to join your divine inflow. Thank you so much.
Oh, we're always so happy to hear your revelation, your enthusiasm.
The proof of your consciousness is you're always mirthfully chuckling. Every time I tune in, you're laughing about something. And this is the proof of Krishna consciousness, is Ananda. Jai.
Jai Bhakta Jam. Yeah, you know, I've had similar reflections on this whole goddess worship movement. You know, because, you know, normally we that's something we kind of keep on the upper shelf. You know, we don't, it's not something we break out in the first meeting, you know. But seeing like how it's becoming so popular, then it's like, well, we have something to say about that too. You know, and we have a lot more to say. Like, that's our thing, actually.
Yeah, I've been studying once again the Sri Radha Sahasra Namastotra, spoken by Lord Shiva, all about the glories of Radharani. He's telling Parvati all about Radharani.
Oh, really? Lord Shiva telling Parvati the glories of Radharani. Wow, that's pretty far out.
Yeah, it's Sri Radha Sahasra Namastotra. It's a little book about Radharani.
And that's found in one of the Puranas, is it?
This particular one was translated by Bhumipati Das and edited by Purna Prajna Das. And where was it published? Let's see here. It's a tiny little booklet. It was given to me by my god sister, Dira Lalita, in South Africa. This is published by the Rasi Bari Lal and Sons in Loy Bazaar, Vrindavan,
Right. Yeah.
2005.
Sure.
So anyway, it's far out. They're talking about Radharani. So I'm trying to equip myself, with the appropriate shastric ammunition.
It might be
as we
from
say.
the Sri Narada Pancharatra.
That sounds about right. Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Thank you,
Okay.
Jai Dave.
Well, we're just about running out of time. Does anyone have any final comments? Radhana Rupini, please.
I was just thinking, let's see, am I? Oh yeah, I'm unmuted. In regards to Srimati Radharani as the ultimate feminist in a feminine way, is so different from, and I hope I don't offend anybody, but so different from the mentality of the feminist in the material world. I mean, I understand that we don't want to be oppressed. That's very understandable. But at the same time, we don't want to become like our oppressors. And I have noticed that there are some women that feel that strength, to be strong, means to be hard. But actually, the strength of a woman is her femininity. And she can be extremely strong, extremely independent, but yet soft, because that is her strength, is her softness. And I have also seen some coworkers when I was working, and they become what they hate. They have become hard, and they become what they hate, the manner of speech, the manner of how they treat people, the manner, their mentalities have, become what they hate in the other, like in the opposite sex, and if you look at Srimati Radharani's, if you read her qualities, I mean, just reading her qualities is like amazing. She is the ultimate. She's very strong. She has Krishna totally under control, but she has it in a very soft, feminine manner. I just wanted to say that.
Beautiful, very nicely expressed, Radhana Rupini. Marie has some comments here. And welcome also, Ananda Krishna also joined us about halfway through. Any final words from anyone? Should we close there for today? Suvasini Didi, anything you want to add?
No, Lily, thank you. No, I don't have anything to add today. No.
But I would like to say, like, if we're talking about the dignity of femininity, Suvasini Didi, she's like the pinnacle of that.
Please.
I'm fortunate I get to visit her sometimes in Ireland, and I'm just blown away, by her. I mean, she's just one of the most dignified persons that I know, and it's very powerful. Like, I mean, that spirit of what's the word? That mood, like unassuming. What's the proper word that I want? That mood of non-aggression, right? And it's actually very, very powerful. That what's the word that I'm looking for? But that feminine mood of stepping back, not non-assertion, non-aggression. She carries that in a very powerful and dignified way, and I'm always very, very inspired by that mood. Not like us Americans. She comes from a South Indian Brahmin line of family, and like she's carrying the remnants of a dying culture. Oh, it's always a privilege, Sivasani Devi. Okay, well, I guess we'll stop there for today. Thank you so much for all of your wonderful contributions and for making this meeting possible. And so we've come to more or less come to the end of verse number 3. And so we'll move on to verse 4 next week. Jai Shri Bhakti Sandar Govinda Deva Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Bhakti Raksha Shri Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shri Brahma
Jai.
Jai. All the assembled devotees, sincere seekers Ki Jai.
Haribo.
Jai. Jai Gaur Premanande. Haribo.
Jai.
Jai.
Thank you for your association one more time. Thank you, everybody, for your association.
Thank
Jai.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dandavat.
My Dandavats.
Dhanyavad.
Obeisances.